Zion, chapter 7, Iggeret haTeshuva. I hope that you all have, good morning, the papers that we gave out before. I hope that you all have, good morning, the paper. So we stopped in the middle, but because it was such a big break, I'd like to go back to the beginning of chapter 7. This guy keeps repeating what I'm saying. But because it was such a big break, I'd like to go back to the beginning of chapter 7. This guy keeps repeating.
So an original.
Seven. Okay. So in chapter 6, what he explained was what Tshuva is all about, like what happens beruchnius when a person does an avera, morning, and what we accomplish through doing Tshuva. But narrowly, of course, I didn't avera, did something wrong, there's a punishment, and I need the punishment to be canceled. This is on the simple level, on the level of pshat. On a deeper level, on a spiritual level of understanding, something much deeper going on. And that is that when a person does an avera, what they're causing to happen is that the light and vitality of the Shekhinah, of Hashem's presence, which normally should be flowing to holy places and increase more holiness in the world, when I do an avera, I cause that light and that vitality to flow to klipa. And as a result of that, I'm actually adding more life and more vitality to klipa, which increases more evil in the world, more negativity in the world. And that's the general statement. To be more specific, we're taking the letter of Hashem's name, which is Hey. That's the part of Hashem's name that's connected to our neshama. And it's like a rope that has two ends. And when you pull the rope down on the bottom, you're pulling the rope down on top. So therefore, when we do an avera, we bring down that letter of Hashem's name, which is the Hey, and we draw it into klipa. And what do we want to accomplish through tshuva? Tashuv Hey, that the Hey should return to its source. When I do tshuva, what I'm accomplishing is that this presence of godliness, this flow of godly life and godly vitality, which is in the wrong place, so to speak. When I do tshuva, what I'm accomplishing is that that vitality is extracted from the negative place, and the Hey is returning to its source. Now, in chapter 7, the Alter Rebbe is going to go into elaborate more detail. So what is Tshuva Tata? How does one do Tshuva Tata? And after that, he'll explain how does one do Tshuva Ilah, the higher level of Tshuva. So first, Tshuva Tata. So in the lessons in Tanya, you'll find it in Iggeret haTeshuva, page 1069, 1069. Chapter 7. Ulam derech ha'emes v'hayosher l'bchinas tshuva tata, the true way and the direct way for tshuva tata, which means that the Hey Tata, the lower Hey in Hashem's name, should be able to return to its source, reconnect to the Yud and the Hey and the Vav of Hashem's name. In Beis Dvarim Derech Klal, there's two things. You'll see in the notes that they bring here an explanation that was given by the Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe already said what Tshuva Tata is. Tshuva Tata is that you regret what you did and you resolve to do everything good in the future. And the Rebbe explains that on a superficial level, that's sufficient. But here he's going to explain that ha'emes means a deeper, truer kind of tshuva tata. It has more depth to it, and much more substance to it, and then it has much more permanence to it. What is that? So it involves two things. What are the two things? Page 1070. The first thing is to arouse Hashem's supernal compassion, the Mekayra Rachman, from the source of mercy, which is Hashem Himself, al nishmasai the nafshel kiss. Rachmanos, mercy and compassion for his neshama and his nefesh alakis. Shenafla me'igra rama, the neshama fell from a very high roof. Chaya chayim baruch hu, it came from a place of life, not just a place of life, a place which is so much full of life. It's the source of all life, which is Hashem. And it fell the bira mikta into a deep pit. And this is Heichalis, Atuma Vesidracha, the chambers of impurity, and the Sidracha, which is Klipa. So the analogy, and this is a quote from the Zohar that's used very often in Chassidus. Yes? I don't have extra packet. And Mrs. Yap is not here today, so I can't get copies. Everyone tune in if anyone is ringing the bell. Okay. So what the term means is begashmius. We all understand what it means if a person falls. Fall, you get hurt. It's painful. Then this falling, not physically, but figuratively speaking. A person who's wealthy and loses all his money. A person who has a very high position in government, position in the community, and then he is lowered because found out something about him and he's humiliated. That's also a form of falling. Here we're talking about a spiritual fall, going from a very high place spiritually and descending to a very low place spiritually. And that's what the neshama goes through. So to describe high and low begashmi is, you would say, if someone's in a high place in a building, it could be the second floor, the third floor, the fourth floor, but the highest point in a building is the roof. So it's a way of saying fall from the highest point, the roof. And then when you fall, you can fall on the floor, which is bad enough. Or even worse than that, that there's a deep hole in the ground. And not only you fall to the ground, but you fall into a deep hole deeper into the ground itself. And that's how he describes the descent of the Nefesh Elokis. It was in a beautiful high place on a high roof, and it fell down to a deep pit. Not only a pit, but a deep pit. So the high place is Hashem, and that's the source of life. And where it falls into a place of klipa, impurity, sidracha, which is the other end of the spectrum, the lowest that could be. So number one, arousing Hashem's compassion for my neshama, that it has such a descent, which is, again, we can use the same analogy with Gashmias. If we see a person that is chas v'shalom suffering in one way or another, let's say a person is suffering financially, and you see what they're going through. They have to struggle to pay their rent, struggle to buy clothing, struggle to buy food, and they can't even buy enough. People go hungry in the family. You feel compassion, and usually moved to do something about it. That feeling is called Rahman, it's compassion. But the compassion that you feel depends a lot on the circumstances as well. In other words, when you see somebody who is suffering, is one thing. But when you see someone who was in a different place completely, which means they had wealth, they had comfort, they had a beautiful home, and things went bad for them, and they had to sell their home, they were evicted from their home. The more you understand where they're coming from and where they are now, the more you feel the compassion. So the more we understand how high the neshama was, by learning more about the source of the neshama, and the more we understand how low the neshama fell, the stronger would be the feeling of compassion. Then another line here says, Not only is the compassion on the soul, but in a sense, Hashem's compassion on the divine presence itself. That the divine presence also has this big descent, and that should be something that should arouse Hashem's compassion. That part of Hashem, his Shekhinah, which is part of him, is in a place where he doesn't want it to be, and Hashem feels compassion for that part of the soul. As it's written, the Yoshuv Elavaya B'Rachameyu. He shall return to Hashem, and you'll have compassion for him. Which means that returning to Hashem is connected to this feeling of compassion. I think I mentioned it last time, but just to make it more complete, is that when we talk about the different faculties of the neshama and the different ways to serve Hashem, we always say this: Chesed, there's Gevura, and Tiferes. What is it practically? What does it mean? How do we translate that in terms of serving Hashem? Chesed means serving Hashem with love. Gevura means serving Hashem with fear and awe. And Tiferes is serving Hashem with compassion. So normally the way people interpret that to mean is serving Hashem with compassion means when you have compassion for another Jew or another human being, or compassion even for an animal, and you help them. That's a character trait. The only thing is it's not really directly connected to serving Hashem like love and awe. Love means you love Hashem. Awe means you have awe for Hashem. Where does compassion fit in? So in many places, in fact, this would be considered one of the sources that compassion means, not just compassion for another human being is suffering. I have compassion for my own neshama, and that compassion arouses within me a feeling that I want to, I feel motivated to do everything I can to change the condition of the neshama that it shouldn't be suffering, or even more so the condition of the Shekhinah. Yep.
Can you use, like, in this topic, can you use neshama and shekhinah like interchangeably?
It's not really interchangeably, but you could use it interchangeably because what is the neshama? It's something which is part of Hashem's Shekhinah. But when I say neshama, it's more about my identity. It's the deeper, truer part of my identity. When we talk about Shekhinah, it's a manifestation of Hashem's identity.
So when you're saying how they were in such a high place and now they're in such a low place, like, what was in a higher place, the neshama or the shekhinah?
Both. The Shekhinah is the hay of Hashem's name. So that's lowered into a place of klipa. So in a sense, Hashem, when we say the word Hashem in this context would mean the higher level, it feels compassion towards that lower level that had a descent. And then the other thing I want Hashem is to feel compassion for my neshama, which also had a very deep descent.
You said that by serving Hashem with Iggeret, that's like serving Hashem with compassion.
Right.
You have compassion for Hashem with shekhinah. Then you said that like arouse the feeling in us to like we'll want to make it in like a less lower place, and so that means like by
right that motivates me to change and to improve the way I conduct myself.
And that like by doing Torah mitzvahs in a way you're like I guess you're like feeding in the neshama.
I'm going back. I'm returning the neshama back to its source. So now he elaborates on this a little bit more. Pirush. Now he's talking about the second thing, to arouse compassion for that vitality and life force of Hashem, that it evolves, and it was lowered, that it's now in a place of sitracha and klipa. Through the bad actions of this person, through his bad thoughts, he brings down the level of Shekhinah into a place of klipa. 1072. As it's written, Melech also berahotim berihitim meicha. The pasuk in Shir Hashirim, which says the king is bound with gutters, which means tied up Others is not ropes. I think it's certain branches. But the king is tied up. And the Zohar says with the gutters of the mind, which means the way it comes from the Zohar, it means to explain that the Shechina, as if it's tied up in chains and I'm schlepping the Shechina down. Ibchin is Golas HaShechina Canal. I want to add, this also explains very often we come across what it says in Chassidus that a Baal Tshuva is higher than a tzaddik. And the reason is because when a person is motivated to do Torah mitzvahs in an ordinary situation, you're motivated in a certain limited way. But when a person was far from Hashem, and because of that distance, you are yearning to come closer, that will motivate the person in a much stronger way. So the love that a person who does tshuva has for Hashem and the desire to get closer is so much more intense. Like the mashal of a person that's in the city and is thirsty. But a person that's in the desert and they're thirsty, which means they're so much far away from water, their desire for water is so much more intense. So this is the deeper meaning to what Chazal said. If someone says, today I will sin, and tomorrow I'll do tshuva, Hashem says, if you do that, I'm not going to let you do tshuva. So the simple meaning is, again, this is the pshat, that a person says, I want to have the best of both worlds. In English, they'll say, I want to have my cake and eat it. How could you have both? You can't. Here a person says, I'll do my averis, I have a good time, I'll enjoy myself, all the fun and entertainment that I want, but it's against Hashem. So tomorrow I'll do tshuva, nothing stands in the way of tshuva, so I'll have both. So the Torah says, if you do that, your tshuva won't be accepted. That's the simple meaning. Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, we're going to learn it later. No, it doesn't mean you won't be accepted. There's nothing in the world that stands in the way of tshuva. It means it'll be much more difficult for you to do tshuva. Hashem will put things blocking your path from doing tshuva. So if a person says, okay, so I'm going to work harder. Today I'll enjoy myself, but tomorrow I'll do tshuva. Now the question is, that's the simple meaning. What is the Hasidic meaning? No, we're not talking about a person that is obsessed and a person that's into physical pleasure, and he says, I'll do Avera to have physical pleasure. We're talking about a person of a higher spiritual level. And he is envious, he's jealous of the person who does tshuva, that he has such an intense level of tshuva. I wish I could feel that. So what does he say? Yes, I could feel it. I'll do an Avera, and then I'll be far from Hashem, and that'll generate these intense feelings. So I'll feel the same as the person who does tshuva. It's like people want to feel adrenaline. When do you feel adrenaline? When there's some sort of a dangerous situation. Okay, I'll jump from a plane. I'll start feeling adrenaline. So a person will say, I'll do an Avera, and my purpose is to reach a higher level of serving Hashem. What's so terrible with that? What?
It's a mitzvah that comes on the day of the day.
Right. The mitzvah comes through Avera. Okay, that's a technical answer. But if we think of what I'm gaining something which I could never have, because it says a tzaddik can't stand in the place of tshuva because he never did an Avera. It was never so far, so he could never experience that intense love for Hashem. So now if you can think for a second, based on what we learned here, what would you say could be the answer to that question? Think for 2 seconds. Yeah. What? No, that's for sure. But the question is, what would be the reason? If I want to do the Avera because through that I'm going to reach a very high level of serving Hashem, so my intention is good. Why is it so terrible? Yeah.
You can't do tshuva.
Say, what did you say? That's another thing. That's
They're not in the desert.
what?
They're not in the desert then.
Yeah, but I want to get into the desert, so I'll feel that longing for water, like I
But
don't.
the Alter Rebbe says that you can't do an Avera with the intention that you're going to do tshuva about it.
Now, I know he says that. I'm asking what is so terrible if I'm doing Avera to do tshuva, because not because of the. Oh, that's what I'm waiting for. In other words, if it would only involve me, I can say, okay, I want to go into the deep waters, and then my desire to be alive and go back up to the surface is going to be amazing. It's going to be a thrilling experience. So this will be a thrilling experience spiritually. But wait a second, when I do an Avera, I'm drawing the Shekhinah down in a place of Klippa. So what am I saying? I'm going to draw the Shekhinah down in a place of Klippa, of impurity, a place where Hashem despises, so I can get to a higher level. Chas v'shalom, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, so again, on the simple level, of course it doesn't make sense. You're not allowed to do an Avera. Even and because you want to do tshuva, it's still you're going against Hashem. But when the motivation is something spiritual, we need an explanation. So what is so terrible? I didn't have it today. Tomorrow I'm going to reach such a high level of spirituality. And the answer is, but what I'm doing is, through doing this, I'm bringing Hashem's presence, the Shekhinah, in a place of impurity. And you know that in halacha, that's one of the most severest things. And that is, for example, in the Beis Hamikdash, if somebody would bring something impure in the Beis Hamikdash, it's a very severe violation of Torah, a very severe penalty. Or a person who's tamei will eat a carbon. You're not allowed to. It's punishable by opposite of life. Because you're taking holiness and kedusha, something very holy, and you're drawing it into a place of people. So this is where the feeling of compassion is. And this is called Galus Hashchina. Galus Hashchina is something which comes from the Gemara, that when you didn't go to Galus, Hashem goes to Galus with us. But again, on the simple level, the literal level, what it means is that the Shekhinah is in exile and suffers with us when we are in Galus. So when we go to a place and that nation is persecuting us and we're suffering, it's not that Hashem just sends us there and says, okay, it's your fault, you messed up, so you have to suffer. And when you're done with your therapy, you can come back out. No, Hashem suffers with us. That's the simple meaning. The deeper meaning is, Galus Hashchina, I cause the Shekhinah itself to be going into a place of impurity and klippa, and that's Galus Hashchina. And that's what a person should be concerned about even more than their own personal, what they're lacking personally. The time that a person should sort of meditate on this to arouse this compassion is at night, but Tikkun Chatzos. Chatzos is midnight. And years ago, this was a common practice where people would get up shortly after midnight. They would sit on the floor and they would say certain prayers and cry over the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. But it wasn't just about the destruction of Beis Hamikdash in general, but every person would think about their own personal Beis Hamikdash and where that's standing. The last line of page 1072. This is what it means when it says in this prayer, Nafla teres reshenu, the crown of our head fell. Oy no lanu ki chatanu, woe to us that we sin. The crown of our head fell means Hashem, the Shekhinah, is the crown of our head, and through me doing Averis, I bring the Shekhinah down into a place of klip. Locher nika kodesh baruch hu melech all of the Pirkei HaCholos. In this source, which is called Pirkei HaCholos, it says that when a person does an Avera, Hashem is referred to as a humiliated king. It's like taking a king and doing something which humiliates the king, which is one of the worst things you can do to a king. A king is the one who is the leader of the country, and humiliating him is a very, very big violation of a person or any subject towards a king. As the Ramak says, there's no greater humiliation than this, to take Hashem. Like I said, there's another place in Tanya where it says it's like taking the head of a king and forcing it into a place of filth. That is the most humiliating thing that a person could do. And that's what we're doing when we do an Aver. Now, we said before, the more I think about the greatness of Hashem and the lowliness of where I bring him, the more I'll feel the compassion. So this is the next slide, page 773 in the middle. The more a person would think about the greatness of Hashem, how Hashem is Malach Kolam and he fills all the worlds. The Seviv Kolam and he encompasses all the worlds. Hashem is we think about the world that we know, the world itself is vast. The earth, all the planets, all the galaxies, and they keep discovering new and new things that are light years and light years and light years and light years away. The world is huge, but it's all something that Hashem gives it life. Hashem fills all the worlds in the physical realm. He fills all the worlds in the spiritual realm, and he encompasses all the worlds. Hashem is infinitely greater than everything and anything we can comprehend, and that's who we're bringing down. So kol echad ve'echad p'shir sichli v'avanasei. Every person thinks about the greatness of Hashem according to their intellectual capacity. So some people understand it more, some people understand it less, and what's expected of each person is understand it according to your level, whatever you can understand. But whatever you'll understand, it'll bring the person to Yismar Mazeh Ma'ed. He'll feel extremely grieved by this, and that will make him think of the compassion that Hashem has for me, and that'll lead me to let go of where I was and to change my ways in a real deep way. I said before, there were two things. This was the first thing, the compassion, Rachmanis. But let's also remember compassion for two things. Number one, compassion towards my neshama, and number two, Hashem's compassion towards the Shekhinah itself. You just took the words out of my mouth. I was just about to say that. It's not talking about our compassion. It's talking about arousing Hashem's compassion. And I think part of that is also that our understanding of how sort of terrible the situation is, which makes us feel compassion, we really don't get it. Whatever we understand is really nothing compared to the way it really is. So we're trying to think of how Hashem really understands the difference between where it was and where it is. Imagine the compassion that he has for us. There's a part in davening. It's after Baruch Hu, we say, Rachamecha Rabim, Hashem, in your great compassion, Rachem Aleinu, have compassion upon us. Meaning to say, we don't even understand how this is such a situation which warrants compassion. It's like, God forbid, something happens, which is a tragedy. Everyone feels bad. But the feeling bad depends on how much intelligence the person has. Sometimes children don't even understand how the situation is such a dire situation and what kind of rachmanis it is. And the more a person understands, the more they feel rachmanis. So we're saying just to think about how Hashem's compassion would be for this is enough to motivate me to do the proper tshuva. The second thing is levate shlachniya klipa b'sidracha. In order for me to do true tshuva, I have to crush the klipa and the sidracha. In a sense, some places they use the mushal, like if you want something to grow in a field, you have to put seed in the ground. What do you do before you put the seed in the ground? Know what here works in a field? Yeah. What?
The ground.
Right. How do you get the ground? Well, you have to plow the ground, which means you make it soft. The ground is hard. And because it's hard, it won't even absorb the seed. So first you have to do something to make the ground soft. Now that it's soft, it can absorb the seed and things start growing. Our heart is also hard and tough. What makes it hard and tough is the klipa in me. Because mitzad my nefesh alakis, I'm extremely sensitive to godliness. But the Nefesh Bahamas and the klipa that's in me makes my heart tough, makes my heart callous and insensitive. And what we need to do is soften it up. How do we soften it up? So he says, what makes the Nefesh Bahamas so insensitive is mainly Gasas HaRuach. What defines klipa is arrogance. Meshikosav, as it says, there's a pasuk. And those of you who have the booklet, I always like to show you where it's written so you can see it inside, page 12. It's also a pasuk that's quoted a lot in Chassidus. Page 12, it's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, where he's rebuking the people about committing sin. And he uses this as an analogy. Kisagbia kanesha kinecha. If you will raise your nest as high as an eagle, I will bring you down from there. This is what Hashem said. In other words, comparing sin to rising like an eagle. Why? Because klipa is all about arrogance. Why is klipa about arrogance? Isn't klipa all about pleasure? I want to enjoy food, I want to enjoy money, I want to enjoy entertainment, which is not so kosher. So why do we say that the core and the essence of klipa is arrogance? And the answer is because when we say arrogance, we don't mean where it means, again, in a literal sense, somebody who's boasting about his greatness. What the definition of klipa is something which wants to establish its own separate, independent identity from Hashem. Everything in the world was created by Hashem. Everything in the world is dependent on Hashem. So just like sometimes children rebel because they don't want to feel they have an authority. I don't want to feel that my parents are telling me what to do. So how do I establish my own independent identity? By not listening to them. If I listen to them, then who am I? So basically, klipa does what it wants, not what Hashem wants. But the core of it is the desire to establish its own independent identity. Yeshus. That's why he's saying that the essence of klipa is rising, this feeling of being something on my own. When you crush this feeling in the klipa, zui misosa bitula. That's how you destroy it. That's how you kill the klipa, because that's really the essence of klipa. That's how it's like a balloon that's floating in the air because it's full of air, but it's nothing more than air. And you take a pin and you make a hole in it, and you take the air out. Where does the balloon go? All the way down to the ground. There's nothing left. The air in klipa is this gaiva, this arrogance, this desire of being independent, which makes it feel important. So I have to crush that, and then the klipa loses its strength. And how do I crush it? When a person has a broken heart, and the broken heart from look what I've done to my neshama, look what I've done to the Shechina, that broken heart breaks the klipa in me. It says that the sacrifice to Hashem is a broken heart. There's an expression in Yiddish. There's nothing more complete than a broken heart. But a broken heart doesn't mean depression. A broken heart means to break that arrogance, that independence. When a person breaks the arrogance, what do they feel? They feel one with Hashem. Not they feel, I'm non-existent, I'm worthless, no, I'm nothing. The feeling is the klip in me is nothing. That independence is really nothing. I am one with Hashem. So it uses the term Elokim. Called carbon, generally speaking, when you bring a carbon from a behemoth, the Shem Havaya, Chumash always says the carbon is to Hashem, but using the name Havaya. That's Midas HaRachmim. Our Shem Elokim, Midas Adin, a Makrivim carbon behemoth. We don't find in the Chumash that it should say, bring a carbon to Hashem, but using the name Elokim. So the reason why we say this is like a carbon to Hashem, and we're using the name Elokim, because this carbon is about l'shaber or lahavir ruach hatuma v'sitracha. It's about breaking the spirit of the klipa. And how do I break the spirit of the klipa? By having the broken heart from what I've done, and that breaks the spirit of the klipa. So that's the next part that he's going to explain on page 1075. And how do I have that broken, humbled heart? Part of it is accomplished by the fasting, which we learned about in the previous chapters, which this is the way things were done in the earlier generations. The fact that I didn't sort of feed my guf and nefesh bahamis and give them the things that they desire, that broke their spirit. It's like we see that when a person wants something very much and they can't get it, it's very upsetting. And that's why people fly off the handle and they can't get something that they want. That's why children fly off the handle and get something they want. Because I want something, how can I not get it? In fact, we see people usually lose their temper and they really go sometimes totally off the wall from things that are not even so significant, but it's just something that they wanted and they couldn't get it and they go crazy. If it ever happened to you that you're online somewhere in the bank or in the store and someone gets online before you, you feel upset about it. But some people become crazy, angry. They can start beating the person up, pull out a gun and shoot somebody. What happened there? They went in line in front of you as if you never lost a minute in your life. The answer is it's about, I want to be here and you're not letting me do what I want. And that's the arrogance in the Nefesh Bahamas. So here's going to explain now. So when a person, when the guf and Nefesh Bahamas want to eat and wants to drink and wants to have all this enjoyment and this pleasure, the fact that I deprive it of this, that breaks the spirit of the Nefesh Bahamas. The reason why we don't do it today, because it also does damage. It's like certain medicine, which it destroys the unhealthy tissue in the body, but it could also destroy the healthy tissue in the body. And for us, getting too much into this kind of avodah will destroy the positive parts of a person. That's why we're not so much into broken heart and fasting, any of these things that break us. Because we end up doing more damage than good. But in principle, this is one of the things. When it comes to David HaMelech, he said that my heart is slain within me. In other words, as if someone was killed. Who are we talking to? Talking about the Yetzer Hara. He killed his Yetzer Hara, but tightness through fasting. In other words, he fasted so much and he totally and completely destroyed the spirit of his Nefesh Bahamas. Mainly, it comes from being a master of accounting, paying attention to what's going on in my life. Reminds me of a saying that it was once the time of Sphira. What do you do, Sphira? You count every day. Today's 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. So someone said to the Rebbe Rashab, or Rebbe Marash, one of the Rabbeim, he said that Hasidim years ago, they would count every day, not only when you count the Omer. What does it mean count every day? That every day that would go by, it was significant. So what have I accomplished? How can I make tomorrow a better day? Did I go wrong anywhere? In other words, they didn't just let time pass, but they paid attention. That's called Mara de Chushba, a master of accounting. A person should spend time every night before going to sleep to think about what did I do to bring the Shekhinah into Golus. We have to continue this tomorrow, but we mentioned this so many times that I'll still say it again because every time we learn about it, we might get a Yetzer Hara to try to do this. It's not the avodah of our times today. We'll do this in a different way. I'll explain tomorrow what we can do. But when a person is going to sit every night before going to sleep and think about broken heart and what I did to the Shekhinah and so on and so forth, much more will be broken than just the heart. So therefore, our avodah is more with simcha, It's not good with Zaingut, more about improving in the future. But nevertheless, there's got to be room for something like this also in terms of our Aveda. So we will, Lena, talk about tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay. And then, how many of you don't have copies? Oops. I thought we gave out copies before Yafta. So if Mrs. Yafta shows up tomorrow, I'll ask her to make more copies. That's for sure. Okay. Okay, who has the buzzer? Thank you very much.
I'm so excited. I'm out there with you. Here I am. I'm so excited. This is my favorite.
I'm literally waiting.
Okay, wait.